Another Daily Mail TV exclusive, too posh to push. Meghan Markle made her first husband agree to a pregnancy contract to make sure that she was afforded every possible luxury if she gave birth to their child. It has the exclusive details now from our New York newsroom. Charlie, what is this so-called pregnancy contract?
The man who stayed silent for over a decade has finally spoken. And the reverberations from that single decision are shaking the very foundation of one of the most carefully constructed public images in modern history. We are not talking about a disgruntled ex. We are not talking about a tabloid source with an axe to grind. We are talking about Trevor Engelson, the Hollywood producer who was married to Meghan Markle before she became a duchess. Before the Netflix deals, before the Oprah interview, before any of it. The man who knew her when she was just a cable TV actress trying to make it in a brutal industry. The man who helped build her. The man she left with nothing more than a FedEx envelope. And now, in 2026, he is reportedly done being quiet. Think about that for a moment. Over 10 years of silence. A decade of watching from the sidelines as the woman he once called his wife rewrote history. Gave tearful interviews about her struggles. And fashioned herself into a global symbol of empowerment. 10 years of saying absolutely nothing while his own role in her story music was quietly erased from the narrative. What kind of information does a man sit on for that long? What does it take to finally push someone across that line from dignified silence into full disclosure? That is exactly what we are going to break down today. Because the Trevor Engelson story is not just about a divorce. It is about a carefully constructed lie that may be about to come undone. And Prince Harry, sources say, is in total shock. Stay with us because this is the story behind the story and it changes everything. The man who knew too much. To understand why Trevor Engelson breaking his silence is such a seismic event. You first have to understand who he actually is and why his voice carries so much weight right now. Trevor Engelson is not a bitter nobody looking for 15 minutes of fame. He is a successful, respected Hollywood producer with a thriving career and a full life. He has a new wife, 3 children, and a production empire that he built through hard work and genuine industry relationships. He had every reason in the world to keep his head down, count his blessings, and let the past stay buried. That is exactly what made his silence so powerful and what makes his decision to speak so explosive. For over a decade, Trevor played the role of the dignified ex-husband with absolute perfection. While the media dissected every chapter of Meghan's life, her royal debut, her wedding, the bombshell Oprah interview, the move to California, the Netflix series, the memoir, Trevor remained completely, immovably quiet. No unauthorized interviews, no anonymous tips to tabloids, no carefully leaked grievances through intermediaries, nothing. And in a world where everyone sells their story, where former friends and disgruntled employees regularly cash in on celebrity proximity, Trevor's silence was almost louder than words. It told the world, this man has something worth keeping quiet about. But ask yourself this, why would a successful, well-adjusted man with zero financial motive suddenly decide to break a silence he has maintained with such discipline for over 10 years? What changes? What finally tips the scale? According to insiders close to Trevor, the answer has less to do with money and everything to do with something far more personal. The eraser of the truth. Sources suggest that watching his own history, his role in her career, his emotional investment, his very existence in her story gets systematically wiped from the public record was something Trevor tolerated for a long time. But as the reinvention became more elaborate, as the narrative became more polished, and as the original version of events drifted further and further from reality, the weight of that silence reportedly became too much to carry. He is not looking for a comeback, he is reportedly looking for recognition of the truth. And in 2026, he has decided the world deserves to hear it, the FedEx divorce. What really happened in 2013? Before we can talk about what Trevor is reportedly preparing to reveal music, we need to revisit the event that started everything. The moment that by most accounts set the tone for everything that followed. The way Meghan Markle ended her first marriage. In 2013, Trevor Engelson was in Los Angeles. Meghan was in Toronto filming Suits. The legal drama that had given her a taste of real fame and a platform that was rapidly expanding her social world. The couple had been married for 2 years. By all accounts, Trevor had been a devoted partner, using his industry connections to help her career, supporting her through the grinding years of auditions and near misses, and standing by her when the opportunities were few and far between. Then came a package in the mail, delivered via registered mail. Inside were Meghan's wedding and engagement rings. No phone call, no final conversation, no face-to-face meeting to close a chapter that had started with a genuine commitment. Just a cold clinical package that reduced years of marriage to a canceled subscription. The rings in an envelope, the relationship over, no explanation required. Now stop and think about what that tells us, because the how of a breakup matters just as much as the why. When you end a relationship through a FedEx package, when you cannot bring yourself to look someone in the eye and have even a brief, difficult conversation, it reveals something about your relationship to accountability. It reveals a willingness to treat people as stepping stones rather than as human beings worthy of basic respect. Trevor was reportedly blindsided. He had no warning, no preparation, and no real explanation. One day he was a married man with a partner he had invested years of his life in. The next he was holding 2 rings and reading between the lines of an act so cold it barely qualified as a goodbye. Insiders who knew the couple during those Toronto years described the period leading up to the divorce as a calculated social migration. As Suits took off and Meghan's profile grew, her circle began to change. Old friends, people who had known her before the fame, were quietly filtered out. In their place came high-profile Canadian socialites, power players, and connections who could offer something more valuable than loyalty. Access to a world that was bigger than cable television and bigger than Hollywood. Trevor, by multiple accounts, was left behind not just physically while she was in Toronto and he was in LA, but emotionally. He was the man who knew her before the reinvention. And that, as we are about to see, is precisely what makes him so dangerous to the narrative she has spent years building. The vision board and the $100 million miscalculation. Here is where the story takes a turn that even the most seasoned royal watchers were not fully prepared for. And here is where we need you to pay very close attention. Because this is the allegation that reportedly has Meghan's entire PR operation in emergency mode. Meghan famously told the world during her Oprah interview that she had no idea what she was getting into when she met Prince Harry. She claimed she did not even know who he was before their supposed blind date. She painted a picture of 2 strangers brought together by serendipity, connecting over nothing more than their shared humanity. But sources who were in Meghan's inner circle during the Trevor years, people who knew her long before she was the Duchess of Sussex, tell a very different story. And according to insiders close to Trevor, the rumors of a very specific vision board have been circulating in certain circles for years. Not a general vision board about happiness or career goals. A targeted one that reportedly had a very specific individual pinned at its center. Prince Harry. The narrative of the star-crossed lovers who met purely by chance is by all accounts one of the most beautiful and emotionally compelling stories Meghan has ever told. It is also, if these allegations are accurate, one of the most deliberately constructed ones. Sources suggest that rather than a serendipitous romantic encounter, the meeting was the product of a sustained strategic campaign to position herself in the right circles at music, the right time with the right access. Meghan reportedly studied Prince Harry with the dedication of someone preparing for the role of a lifetime. His vulnerabilities, his emotional triggers, his well-documented yearning for a family of his own. A deeply human desire that had been documented and discussed for years. His isolation within a royal institution that had never fully known how to handle him. His history with women who had reportedly been frightened off by the scrutiny that came with royal life. He was not just the most eligible bachelor on the planet. He was allegedly a carefully identified target, but here is where the plan reportedly hit a wall. A very large, very financially significant wall. According to insiders, the single most catastrophic miscalculation in the entire operation was the assumption that a British prince was a billionaire. It seems almost comically straightforward in hindsight. Of course, a working royal's wealth is complicated, tied up in trusts, subject to institutional oversight and nowhere near the liquid, freely accessible fortune of, say, a Hollywood entertainment mogul. But the assumption was apparently made, and when reality arrived in the form of cold, hard math. When it became clear that being royal came with a budget and that the royal bank account was not going to